This podcast is for SEO professionals, and each week, with the help of our wonderful guests, we discuss the important stuff that actually affects our careers and progression, but sadly often doesn't get talked about. You know, the invaluable soft and interpersonal skills that are often taken for granted, such as the skills we need for listening, time management, communication, and more. We also talk about the big issues that affect us and our careers, such as burnout, imposter syndrome, self-belief, saying no, plus other big issues and obstacles. With this podcast, we want to share knowledge on topics that unlock our listeners' true potential and enhance not only their careers, but all parts of their lives. So, are you ready to prioritize your own personal growth and career development? Then let's crack on with this week's episode. Hello, and thank you for joining us for another episode of the SEO Mindset podcast, where your hosts are myself, Sarah McDowell, and the ever so fabulous Tasmin Suleiman, with new episodes going out every Thursday. Now, this week I am joined by a cracking guest. I am joined by Sai Deshmukh, and we are discussing how you can be a better leader and manager no matter how big or small your team is. Doesn't matter if you're managing people of 30, 40, 50, 60, however big your team is. This is a great conversation because we talk about lots of wonderful stuff. We talk about how important relationship is, building trust in your team, making sure there's a healthy culture and environment, making sure that you have communication nailed well, even that you're over communicating. We talk about so much. She gives so much valuable advice and things that you can implement to make you a better leader and manager. So who is Sai? She is a marketing strategist with a passion for data-driven SEO campaigns with over 8 years of experience. She's helped over 60 tech startups boost SEO presence in all business verticals. She also enjoys traveling, reading, and experimenting art in her free time. In short, she is an SEO enthusiast, data nerd, and loves helping websites find their spotlight. If you enjoy the podcast and what me and Tasmin are doing, just a reminder of how you can support us. We are set up on Buy Me a Coffee. You can give us a one-off donation, link in the show notes, and please do help us spread the word of the podcast, because we want to help as many people as we can with our episodes and the topics that we talk about. So let's crack on with this week's episode. Hello, and a very warm welcome to Sai.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I'm so happy to be here.
Thank you so much for agreeing to come onto the podcast and to have a
My pleasure. My pleasure.
How are we doing? So we are recording on Thursday lunchtime. I mean, is it lunchtime for you or?
No. It's evening here. So it's 5:30 in India. Yeah. It's our chai time, tea time.
Have you got a cup of chai next to you?
Of course, I don't function without it. There has to be 3 cups in my system before I start my day.
I do find it weird talking to someone who has already pretty much had their day and I'm only halfway through. Like, it does feel a little bit weird that happens.
Oh, please, I'm actually trying to cut down on my coffee and tea intake. I mean, it's just like I'm being fueled by it, and then the entire day goes past that.
I mean, a lot of our audience will be either tea, coffee, caffeine, whatever. I'm all for it. I think I'm on my 3rd cup of coffee today, so I can resonate.
I have one here ready to go.
You're here today talking about how you manage large teams effectively. Right. And we're going to run through your experience, what you found, and hopefully give our listeners some actionable tips and advice on how they can best effectively manage a large team. So, first things first, when we started talking and
Hmm,
you suggested about coming onto the podcast, you mentioned that you currently manage a team of around 40 employees. Is that correct?
right. Yes, that's correct.
So, tell us about that.
So honestly, right now the team size is 40, but I've managed teams, as large as 70 in the past. And my journey essentially began from marketing agencies, right? I was working with Denso International and then Publicis, where I cut my teeth on a variety of different projects. I managed a lot of diverse teams here. Currently, I'm in a startup. So we are about a team of 30, 40. That includes your content writers, your SEO managers, and there's sort of a beautiful hierarchy in place. So I have, mostly most of my experience has been working in agencies, and transitioning to a startup was definitely an exciting shift. The dynamics are really different. These startups are more agile and fast-paced. What I experienced in team management in bigger MNCs and agencies was that it had a huge structure. It had a huge chain of command. Those policies were set in stone, and that's how you're supposed to do it. But in startup, I think with this agile flow, um, that sort of brings more flexibility, that sort of enhances your connectivity with the team, and things. So, each and every project that the team and I work on requires a lot of meticulous planning and communication inter and intra team, ensuring that, everyone is aligned. So in startup, I think that is a major uh, piece of stakes are equally high. Being in small teams or high teams, large number of teams, the stakes are very high. We recently launched a new feature, and the team played a very crucial role in ensuring that every other optimization um, went ahead very quickly. But honestly, this is a stage that we've reached now. In organizations, you have those CMMI levels, right? I essentially want to have that in my team when you initially have a very undefined structure. But as you go ahead, you evolve with the team. And from CMMI 1, let's say I want to read CMMI 5 now. Uh, One key aspect that I feel while working, whether in small or large, in my case, I think such a huge team, is having a very collaborative uh, environment. And this gets fostered not only with the organization but also the team that you're working with. So at times, people say a lot of things about, this organization has a very good culture, this does not, and so on and so on. But what I feel is in that organization, it depends which team you are in. Your sales team will have a very different culture. Your marketing team will have a very different hunky punky culture. And that sort of entirely depends on the manager, right? On the leader that you have. So in huge team and large teams, it was very essential for me to break everything down into silos and then just encourage any sort of open communication. For instance, we hold these regular cross-functional meetings where let's say we have this small research and development cluster, we have a book reading club, and we have something called so like me, we have other people who are chai enthusiasts, who are tea enthusiasts, and then we essentially go outside the office and have 1 hour weekly reserved, which we call as chai pe charcha, which is, very similar to, talk and have coffee. So that's chai pe charcha. And those are informal connects that you have with the team, right? Everyone then just speaks informally about the things they like, the things that they've been doing on the weekend, some new course they've signed up for, or anything. So valuable lesson that this has taught me is, developing that or fostering this collaborative environment. Obviously, I'm not saying that's the only success mantra, or I'm not saying that I'm already a guru there. But it's baby steps, right? It's baby steps.
That's so interesting to hear. And something that I want to pick out of what you said is fostering a positive culture and
Correct, correct.
fostering a place where, because obviously you're hired to do a job, you're hired to get tasks
Exactly,
done, you're hired to get
exactly.
a project sorted or what have you. But the best way that you're going to do that is if you've got a good relationship with the people that you're managing, and it's not
Correct.
just you as the leader, as the manager, having that relationship, but it's also making sure that the other teams have a good relationship with each other, and people that are working together have a good relationship. So is that what I'm hearing right, that that's important?
Yes, I think because see, ultimately, when we talk about a team, it's people, right? Everything is people. When you are working at a very preliminary level, let's say as an IC, as an individual contributor, it's all about hard skills. But once you climb up that ladder, this corporate ladder, I think everything becomes about people management. And success demands success, right? I think that will only pull so much out of you that going on. And this is the one thing that I really, really want to focus that you need to trust the team that you're working with. If you feel that you do not trust your managers, then I'm sorry, you probably are in a wrong team because this trust is going to take you places. And this trust is a basic foundation of any relationship you can have within the team. Obviously, this trust might not be the same against every other team in the organization, but the ones with whom you're working closely day in and day out, right? Where I certainly believe that, people admire Marvel so much and DC so much, and then Avengers in the place. For me, it's them, right? Because these are my reliables, if I may call them, right? The Fantastic Five that I had named my team. We have five managers in the team, and Incredibles, just taking inspiration from that movie. We had named the cluster Fantastic Five. And there's nothing in the world that I could do out trusting, right? And once, let's say, you have established that, I think there's no stopping. There's absolutely no stopping.
Mm. And I suppose trust is important, but it takes time to build trust.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I suppose it's not like a quick fix, is it? A quick win. And I suppose that's why it's so important, because you're only going to have trust if you've got the right culture and you've got the right environment.
Correct,
Trust,
correct.
well, yeah.
And it's never a very simple formula. There's no definitive formula to it. It's not like to have a good culture, step one, step two, step three. No, it's not. People generally say that leadership has if let's say somebody is a leader, then that person by default knows what leadership is. But in my experience, I don't think so that's true because we've been trained how to do the hard skills, but not the soft ones, right? And leadership essentially is being portrayed as a position. Of course, in organizational hierarchy, it's definitely a position, but in my sense, it's an exercise. Leadership is absolutely not a position, it's an exercise. You work on it daily. There's no simple magic formula that can get you through it. So you have to exercise it daily. Probably just try to set small goals for yourself. It could be just as easy as asking somebody, hey, how is your grandfather feeling today? If you knew, if they were in a bad situation the other weekend, and you just go ahead and say that to them. Or let's say if somebody is having periods, I know I was having, and then my team came to me with a flower bouquet and a dark chocolate, right? So it's a two-way street, right? Not only you extending that empathy to them, not only you extending that support to them, but it's the other way around too. I remember I was in well, and two, three folks from my team came to me with a dark chocolate and a flower bouquet, and that sort of increases. the affection and the love towards the entire team, right? And I think that's important. So everybody out there should probably imbibe themselves as leadership should how it should be as an exercise.
And at the end of the day, we are all humans. Yeah. So
Exactly, right.
you shouldn't be seeing an employee as a number or someone
Yeah,
that,
a mere
yeah,
resource, right? Right, exactly.
because the only way that you're going to get the best out of an employee, the only way that you're going to get the best out of someone is if they feel valued, they feel appreciated.
Correct.
And you do that with all the stuff that we're talking about before, that the culture is right, you've got the trust, people get on. And I suppose as well, if you've got that nailed, and it's easier said than done, right? We're sitting here like,
Yeah,
oh,
true,
but
true.
yeah, it does take time, but it's worth it, isn't it? Because I suppose in times of crisis or when things go wrong or anything happens negatively within a team or a business, you're going to be in a much better place if foundationally you're strong as a team and a department.
Correct. Correct. So I think, whenever you are in a volatile time, I think that's a question that keeps most of the leaders up at night, including myself. If you remember a scene from the movie Titanic, where the ship is drowning, but the band's still playing, the ship's going down, but the band's still playing. I feel a bit like the band when you are certainly leading a team at catastrophic times. So, but the good news is that, there are ways to navigate those choppy waters and then, just keep the team afloat. Um, to me, it was always having communication. So when I work right now at Amber, my boss always tells me over communication is the key, right? He's a CEO, and then there are so many meetings that we have, and then at times a few pointers get missed out, and then we circle back to them, and he always tells us, over communicate. Try to over communicate. That's not going to do any harm. And me and my team also follow a different principle where we aggressively and very brutally follow up. That's a small part of how communications also work within other teams. So I think yes, instead of sugarcoating situations as a leader, you can just be honest and upfront about the challenges that you're facing. As a saying goes, a little knowledge is a dangerous thing, right? And keeping your team in the dark will only fuel their anxiety, is only going to fuel a lot of speculation. So you want to arrest that.
Do you know what? I think communication is often undervalued because communication is key. And
Correct.
I absolutely agree that um, in whatever work department, wherever you sit, as long as you are communicative and you are communicating with your team, with who matters, with your clients, with your stakeholders, then they're gonna that's going to help build trust because you're being open
Correct.
and transparent. People aren't going to feel in the dark. They know what's going on. Because I think sometimes, and I am mindful of time because we are going to have to take a short break. But I think oftentimes people don't communicate because they're worried about doing that and what that means. But in actual fact, if they had
Hmm.
communicated in the first place, that it would have helped avoid, or yeah, it just helps the whole company, the whole department, the whole thing that you're working on. So what I suggest doing right now is, because you've given our listeners, myself, so much value in this first half, let's take a short break now, and
Sure.
when we come back, we'll discuss more about leading a team, more about your experience, give our listeners some strategies and tips. But yeah, we'll take a short break now. You can digest that lovely information and join us back for part two.
Done deal, done deal. Yes.
Sarah here, just quickly popping on to let you know about how you can support the podcast, how you can support me and Tasmin. So first things first, we are set up on Buy Me a Coffee, which means you can give us a one-off donation. Thank you to everyone who has done that already. If you fancy doing that, the link is in the show notes and we'd be very much appreciative. And another way is help us spread the word. Get more people to know about the podcast. Tell your colleagues, friends, loved ones, hey, even your pets. Next time you're listening to an episode and you think someone would really love it, find the link and why not share it with them? Sarah here.
And me, Tasmin.
And don't forget me, Jack.
So, gang, what are we all doing here?
Jack, why don't you do the honours?
What an honour. Thank you so much. Drum roll, please.
Sorry, we don't have that sound effect. And unfortunately, my skills just don't stretch that far.
Oh, fair enough. Maybe next time. But we do have some very, very exciting news for you all. Because not one, not two, but 3 successful live podcasts. We are back once again. Search with Candour and the SEO Mindset podcast are teaming up again to record a podcast in front of a live audience.
Yes, that's right. And I am very excited. So join us for a raw and authentic conversation about career planning, but without the overwhelm. We'll be sharing practical advice, tips, plus our own personal experiences.
I am so excited, and this is all free to attend. There's going to be pizza, snacks and drinks included. Again, free. It's happening the night before Brighton SEO. We're starting at 7 on Wednesday, the 2nd of October. Tickets are now up for grabs, and last time we sold out. Well, technically we sold out twice. So if you are interested in joining us, please, please, please grab your tickets now before they all go.
And help us spread the word as well. If you or your colleagues or your friends are going to be in Brighton or attending Brighton SEO coming up in October, the more the merrier. Please all come along and join us.
We'll pop a link in the show notes so you can get more information and grab your tickets. We look forward to seeing you on the night.
SEOs. Have you heard about Stat? Stat is a SERP tracking and analytics platform built for tackling large-scale SEO with accuracy and ease. Whether you're in-house or at an agency, juggling multiple sites, millions of pages, or just a ton of keywords, Stat tracks your search performance at scale without falling over. And since each Google SERP is a treasure trove of consumer research and made of more than just rankings, Stat is more than just a rank tracker. From SERP features to competitors, search volume to share a voice, you'll get everything the 100 Results SERP has to offer, parsed, analyzed, and delivered right to your doorstep every single day. It's pretty much the ultimate SEO insights tool. And with Instant Insight, you can unlock new search opportunities, drive more visibility, and prove the value of the SEO work you do. Want to learn more about how you can succeed with Stat? Head on over to www.getstat.com or follow the link in the show notes.
We are back. Thank you for joining us for part 2, where the conversation is all about managing big teams, the ups and downs, and all the lovely stuff. We're learning so much from Sai and her experiences, and it's great to pick your brain and knowledge on this subject. So what we always love to do with our podcast is give our listeners actionable things that they can implement, actionable tips, strategies that they can listen to and start implementing straight away. So question to you is, give us some actionable tips.
Basically, you just want me to spill out those magic beans, don't you? All right. So again, I think as I said previously, right? So every team has a different number of people. The one thing that you need to absolutely focus on, you cannot have one single style of management, right? If there are 10 people, against these 10 peoples, there are going to be permutation or combination of lines of communication, of modes of communication. So you need to tailor just the way we do, let's say, in marketing, right? We tailor our message according to the audience. We want to target and we want to convert them. In a very similar analogy, I think the person that you're having, let's say, a performance call with or a feedback call with, you need to have a separate management style with everybody. The second thing is, I feel just like doctors, leaders should be best at diagnostics. If you have certain symptoms and if your doctor is not able to diagnose it properly, I mean, every other medication that you're taking is just going to go down the drain, right? And you don't want that happening. So I feel in a very similar fashion, your leaders, your managers should be very good at diagnosing the problems. It could be people problems, it could be operational problems, executional problems, stakeholder problems. At the end of the day, you just need to realize that there are people who are taking care of all of these things. So that's, a second thing that we should definitely imbibe. Third thing is, whenever discussing performance issues, you discuss the issues and not the person. You know, I tend to focus strictly on objective facts supported by any kind of documentation and records that I have at my end, right? This ensures, that all the discussion that you're having remains centered on the outcomes rather than the personal traits of that person, right? Um, I have also observed in the past, wherein early managers who are, good individual performers, but not great team leaders, we tend to dwell on the past mistakes. So there, I think my fourth pointer would be, how do we focus on moving forward positively? So we discuss with the employee one-on-one that, hey, if you're here right now, this is how you could go there. Obviously, we make it a point to make sure that all the team members involved know where they are right now, and then that includes, how do you reach that specific goal? How do you set benchmarks for improvements? So improving in their current goal and not focusing on the past is
Mm.
another thing. And at times it also gets serious enough. These conversations at times get serious enough. So put it in writing. Put everything in writing. The fourth thing is, I at times raise anonymous surveys to the team. So the team might not be very comfortable to come to you and express a certain issue, comment, feedback. So what you do is just use any simple tool as Google Form and just roll out an anonymous survey form that creates a very supportive environment, and you come to know their side of the story, where the team feels safe to share their concerns, express any feelings without the fear of judgment. So that's, I think, the best way to go about it. And every meeting that you have with the team, you should be ending that with a high note of confidence that you trust them, that improvement can happen. You need to be available, and you just need to encourage them to seek out you when needed, right? So I just make it a point that every meeting that I have, we conclude it on a positive note.
Do you know what? There's so much that I want to pick apart in what you've said, and unfortunately, we don't have time for that. You're just going to have to come back and we do another deep dive. But
Woohoo,
one thing
yes,
that they were such valuable tips. But one thing that really stood out to me was dwelling on the past and dwelling on what has happened, because, yeah, like, unfortunately, no matter your best efforts, things aren't going to go to plan, things are going to go wrong, people aren't going to get
correct,
on. We're all humans at the end of the day.
correct,
And I think sometimes what we try to do is, in us wanting to find a solution and wanting us to move forward, we end up like digging into the past of like what has been said in the past. They said this, they did that. And that isn't always helpful, because everyone has their own viewpoint on something, everyone has their
correct,
own
correct,
communication styles. Like, you're not
And
going
it's
to
very
always.
subjective in nature, as you said rightly, that everyone has their own side of story, and it's very subjective in nature. And that's when you, as a leader, need to be very objective. The first thing, the first tip that was on discussing the performance issues and not the person. So you have to be very objective about it. And one thing that we sought out in leaders is how high IQ they have. Nobody focuses on EQ. Emotional intelligence is as much important as your IQ. If you're managing such a big team, I think this is going to be a big, big game changer for you. You need to have a lot of self-awareness. So I remember, I think this was in seventh edition of PM book. There was a diagram, there was a diagram with four quadrants where while I was in my MBA, we were doing this study in a class, and then I still remember that framework wherein, we were told that leaders should definitely have self-awareness, self-management, because as long as you are not composed and calm in handling a situation, you cannot view anything objectively. So, there has to be, I think the first quadrant was self-awareness and self-management, and then social awareness, and then social skills. So self and social are two such entities that can, bring out such a beautiful symbiosis. So people who are at leadership positions should generally be checked on these EQ levels as well, is my suggestion out there.
Do you know what? You've hit the nail on the head, and we've actually had someone on the podcast previously talking about emotional intelligence, because
Wow,
it's often, again, overlooked, but having empathy, knowing
correct,
how to communicate and get on with other people is so important, because at the end of the day, any issue, anything that happens, obviously in the SEO space, Google does stuff and that can cause issues
hmm,
for us. A new algorithm update and something happens to our website, or
right,
like there's lots of stuff outside of our control that is
correct,
going to cause us issues. But another thing that's going to cause us issues is people management, communication styles. And it's so important to remember that just because you feel a certain way or you approach things in a certain way, it doesn't mean that everyone else feels comfortable with that way.
exactly,
People are so different. And I think what's really important is understanding that humans are messy. People get offended. And most of the time, things get taken the wrong way. People aren't always great in how they deliver, and that's where you see a breakdown. And it's so tricky, isn't
correct,
it?
correct,
But if you can foster a relationship, and it sounds, what you're kind of saying with anonymous, that's a hard word to say, anonymous surveys.
Hilarious.
I don't even know if I'm saying it right or wrong. I'm just going to move on. But if you're giving people the opportunity to come forward, say how they're feeling, you're doing a survey and we don't know who it's coming from, because there is that, like, people are a bit
Right,
nervous, aren't they? Like they're nervous about
obviously,
coming forward with the judgment. But if you're creating a space where people can air their concerns or air their issues in a safe
correct,
environment, then you can find out what's going on. And you can, because there's a lot of times where things bubble under the surface and then all of a sudden erupt. Yeah. So
absolutely,
if you can have a culture and environment processes where people can feel comfortable coming forward, you're kind of mitigating that from happening, and you're creating
right,
this
right.
nice environment for everyone to be supportive of one another.
Correct. And I won't even say that, you might get it 100% right in one go. It takes a lot of iterations, a lot of learning and learning, and only then it happens. So, in a room of, let's say, 30, 40 people, not everybody is happy with you. But at the end of the day, you're representing the firm. So you also need to be wary of what sort of responsibilities you uphold. And at the same time, there has to be a balance between managing the team, the responsibilities of the organization. That's a that's a delicate balance. because I think I remember this. We had I had a session on Indian mythology, okay, here at a college in India. And there I was discussing this with a few teachers that when you go beyond two people, right, Sarah? I mean, till two people, till there are people involved, miscommunication, level of miscommunication or probability of miscommunication is very low. Once you cross that threshold of two, the probability increases, right? It's manifold, it's multifold. And that's when you need to arrest, and that's when EQ comes into picture. That's when a lot of processes, um, a lot of systems can work in your favor. So it's important that when you're managing so many people, you need to understand the dynamics are never going to be constant, right?
Lovely. This is a special sponsored segment of the podcast where I have Inga Bubez, Director of Enterprise Marketing for STAT, the Enterprise Search Analytics Division of Moz. Hello, Inga.
Hello, Sarah. How are you? I'm so glad to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me for this special segment. And I can't wait to ask you my questions because I think this is going to be a really good opportunity for our listeners to get to know STAT and what it can do for them. So, starting with the most important question, can you explain to our listener what STAT does?
STAT is a SERP tracking and analytics platform that's built for large-scale SEO needs. So, large-scale SEO could mean that you work for a really big website, one that has thousands or even millions of pages that you're responsible for. Think the retail and e-commerce, finance, travel, hospitality, or even media and entertainment spaces. Or it could mean that you work for an agency and maybe you're not a big agency and maybe each client website isn't massive. But when you add up everything that you're actively working on, it turns out you've got a lot of SEO on your hands. So basically, a typical STAT client ends up tracking thousands of keywords or more. And whether that's for one website or across many websites, doesn't matter. Now, we also tend to favor saying that we do SERP tracking instead of just rank tracking. This is because our data is more than just here's your ranking position and ranking URL. Google puts a ton of money and effort into understanding what searchers want and delivers with the SERPs. So we parse and analyze everything on the 100 results SERP. So along with ranking data, you're also going to get SERP features, competitor insights, visibility metrics, and so on and so forth. In many ways, the large scale of STAT also applies to the sheer amount of data that we collect and the fact that we collect it daily.
Who is STAT for?
Because STAT is designed for large-scale SEO activities, which I just explained, is designed more for a what than a who. So let me explain. We do mostly attract users that have SEO somewhere in their title. So that would be an SEO manager or lead, SEO director, SEO analyst, technical SEO, etc., versus a general marketer. But you certainly do not need to consider yourself a pro, an expert, or an advanced SEO to use STAT.
How does all this data help SEO? So all that data, all that wonderful value that STAT is giving, how does it help? How does it help SEOs?
So by serving up these precision SERP insights every single day, we're helping SEOs understand their unique search landscape in deep dive and how they're positioned in it, and also helping them find new search opportunities and strategies to improve their performance. So SEO is also both very cross-functional and not always the most understood function within one's own organization. even by the team that it may end up sitting on. So that said, one of the biggest things we hear from SEOs is that they often spend a lot of time educating the organization on the value of what they bring to the table, which is a big frustration in itself. So having this kind of data allows them to show the impact of their work. Now, compared to a discipline like PPC, for example, SEO has huge returns and potential, but it does lack concrete data to prove it, correct? So STAT aims to bridge that gap by giving SEOs the scale of data that they need to explain the value and context of their work. That in itself is hugely beneficial.
I could not agree more. And just to finish us off, can you give some specific examples of how clients use STAT to improve their SEO?
I have many examples, but I'm going to try to distill it to the salient ones. A lot of times, clients think they're competing with a handful of known business competitors, but from an organic search standpoint, there are almost always plenty that they aren't aware of. STAT surfaces those true search competitors and how much SERP visibility everyone owns. So now you've saved yourself a ton of wasted effort, and you're in a better position to be super targeted with your strategy. This means that you know who your competitors are and what type of content you need to beat. And now you can also chart your progress and gain the visibility that you need. So this means that since the SERPs are more than just 10 blue organic links, right? Understanding the different types of SERP features that appear in your search space is definitely key. Not only do they present a golden opportunity to own a larger piece of SERP real estate, crucially, they're Google telling you the type of content it knows searchers want to see. STAT will show you exactly which SERP features are showing up for your whole keyword site, specific keyword segments, and even for individual keywords. This way, you can truly understand the content formats worth pursuing, and there's no sense in showing up to a SERP full of video results with a blog post, for example. I think that's truly the salient point and the most important use case that STAT can bring to the table for SEOs.
Amazing. That has been fabulous, Inga. Thank you so much for coming on, spending time with me and telling our audience all about STAT. If you want to find out more, if you want to see the tool in action, if you want to find out anything at all, go and follow the links in our show notes and you can find everything that you need about STAT. Lovely. Do you know what? I very much enjoyed our conversation, and I'm sad to say that we are rapidly running out of time. And I just want to make sure that because there are 3 questions that we always ask our guests, and I'd love to squeeze that in
rapid fire
before we finish. So, first question: what is the main takeaway from today's episode? So what's the one thing that you want people to either learn, start implementing?
Right. I think from all the actionables, it's about trusting your team over communication. It's about, allowing the employees to come up to you, have an open room, a judgment-free space. You need to lead and be objective. That's those 3-4 things I think are the main takeaways.
Wonderful. And I would now like you to suggest someone to follow in the industry who's doing awesome stuff. I know that there's
Oh my
this
God,
is hard.
that's tough. This is absolutely hard. Okay. So I think from the very beginning, absolutely admired Deepak Mankani. Um, he was working with Merkel. Now I think he's in Merkel Dubai. A brilliant, brilliant speaker. I think a huge fan himself of learning and development. Never once we see the chance of having any sort of conversation with him. A dynamic personality. I think he does magic with his words when he's speaking with clients. I think the entire tension in the room just vanishes in a jiffy. So I think Deepak Mankani is the one.
Well, be sure to start following that person. And my last question to you is
Yes.
best career advice that you've ever received?
From my mentors and managers, I think I've learned a lot of things. But to be honest, in the context of, how do we handle teams, my mantra is always that, it's not a simple math. So 1 plus 1 is never 2. 1 plus 1 could be 3, could be 4, could be X, could be Y, could be anything. And I say that because every individual is different. So, every conversation you have cannot be rational every time. It cannot be straightforward every time. There are going to be emotions in the conversation or in the meetings that you have or while managing the entire team. So never think that, just because this is as simple, the outcome should have also been that simple. There are complex emotions involved in each step. So, 1 plus 1 is not 2 when managing the team.
Wonderful. And I'm afraid to say that is it. We are at time. So, want to thank you again, Sai, for joining me for this episode. It's been a wonderful conversation and I very much appreciate.
Likewise, likewise.
Thank you so much. And before I say goodbye, I just want to remind listeners how you can support the podcast. So you can give us a one-off donation. We are set up on Buy Me a Coffee. If you fancy doing that, there will be a link in the show notes. Also, please do share the podcast, share episodes. So if you're listening to this episode right now and you're thinking, I know someone who would love this, get sharing. Tell as many people as you can about the SEO Mindset podcast because we want to reach more people and help more people. We will always check out the show notes anyway, because we'll have links to where you can find Sai and where you can connect and carry on the conversation. And yes, and that's it. And the only thing left to say is take care of yourselves and until next time.
Hey SEOs, are you ready to strike more eureka moments? Then you'll need the ultimate SEO insights tool, Stat. Stat delivers precision SERP insights in any location on desktop and mobile every single day for keyword counts that start in the thousands. There's no more guessing who the competition is or how you measure up. Stat's powerful share of voice metrics and robust competitor tracking will keep you in the know and on top of the SERPs. With one-click CSV reports, handy APIs, and pre-built Looker Studio connectors, you can even take your SERP data to go to fuel deep analysis and ambitious experimentation. And that's just scratching the surface. Learn more about Stat at www.getstat.com or follow the link in the show notes.